Do you want to make your story creepy? Well, I have 4 simple ways to enhance that creepiness for you. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens, and this is Carly Stevens Books for all things writing, publishing, and indie author life. So since it is spooky season, I wanted to give you some tools to make your story a little creepier, or a lot creepier than it is right now. If you want to get that thriller, horror, creepy sense to your writing, here are 4 simple things that you can do. So number 1 is pay attention to word choice. Don't just go with the first thing that comes to mind, but instead use words that are intentionally unsettling, that have connotations that are dark or negative or creepy or icky or whatever it is that you want to get across in terms of that feeling, that unsettled, terrified feeling in your audience. So some examples, I'm going to pull an example from The Witcher Chime by Amity Green. This is a self-published, creepy, it's horror book, obviously. You can tell from the cover there. So we have a very unsettling scene here in the last half of the story. And it says, empty space loomed dark behind the monstrosity, contrasting with alabaster bone dangling in sunlight. The description goes on with some really intense word choice throughout the entire thing, but I want to point out that when I say word choice, I don't only mean adjectives. I don't only mean, the empty space, the dark space, the shadowy space, the gaping space. Those adjectives, those are great, but also pay attention to verbs. You can say that somebody walked, but you can also say somebody shambled, and there's something more unsettling about that, right? That's exactly what Green does here. Empty space loomed behind. The bone dangled in sunlight. Looming, dangling. These are words that can easily be made really frightening or unsettling, and so we have good verbs there. Also nouns. Consider, what are the nouns that are frightening as well, the items, the ideas, the places, the things, and use those words instead of the more, bland or generic version of a word that you could use. So word choice, it's something that anybody of any skill level or practice level can use to enhance that creepy tone of their writing. So that's number 1. Number 2 is fabulous, and it is comparisons. So take care with your comparisons. One example that I used a lot in when I was teaching creative writing, if you want to create a creepy tone, is in the picture of Dorian Gray, there's a line that says, "The moon hung like a yellow skull." I mean, we can picture it, so that's good, but also we have like a yellow skull. It's not like a street lamp. It's not like a smiling face. It's not like whatever. So if you use those comparisons to draw that connection between what you're seeing or the experience or situation to something that is unsettling, creepy, then that is a fast track to getting that scary tone that you're looking for. Somebody who's very, very good at this, there are lots of people, if you just look up lists of horror authors, but Victoria Schwab is very good at this. If you read Gallant, then something that she does consistently that I think is great if you want to get that sense of horror or fright is use comparisons to body parts, especially for non-living things. There's something just so inherently unsettling about that concept. So, for example, in Gallant, she writes, "The door hangs open like a mouth." Very simple, but that comparison to that body part is not, is pretty disconcerting. So, it's a girl who's getting into a car. She's actually going to a place that she thinks is going to be better than the home that she's grown up in. But even so, as she is getting into the car, it's described as getting into the belly of the car. So once again, we have a comparison to a body for a non-living thing. And so even in this moment that's a little bit lighter than the rest of the story, there's still this underlying, this low hum of just really unsettling comparisons that are being made. So yeah, compare to body parts to creepy and unsettling things. Number 3 is choice of detail. So this is when you're giving descriptions, right? You're giving descriptions of the setting, maybe a character. When you have a room like the one behind me to describe, there are a lot of directions you could go. You're not going to itemize everything, and so you have to choose the details that you want to pull out. If you wanted to describe this room in a very positive, happy sense, you could talk about, there are lots of books. We have Lord of the Rings banners going on, teacups, happy stuff. But you could also kind of like a filter on art. You've seen those, right, where it's closer to primary, positive colors. And that gives you the sense that that's a positive scene. But then if you overlay with greens and things like that, all of a sudden you start to get a more ominous sense of that picture. So if you look behind me, we have these busts. You could mention these these kind of decapitated marble busts there. You could focus on the details that are unsettling, that are bad, that are ugly. You could see the scratch in the bookcase there. You could really zoom in on something negative. So choose details that will give you a sense of the room or the person that you're describing, but focus in on that negative or scary stuff, just like an artist or a filmmaker would draw your attention to those particular elements of a space or whatever it is that you're describing. So number 4 is to create uncertainty. Uncertainty is one of the best ways to make a story creepier. There are several ways to do that. But one, if you're writing a story with a monster, for example, if you don't show the monster right away, but instead you're showing evidence of the monster, maybe there's, a trail of carnage in its wake, or they hear a noise, or something is happening. This house seems to be closing around you, but you don't know what's happening or why nobody else is seeing it. Creating that sense of uncertainty is a really effective way to make your story creepier. A more high-level technique for creating uncertainty that you don't have to do with any creepy story, but it's a great way to go about making something creepy, is having an unreliable narrator. Now, again, you don't have to have this. In Schwab's Gallant, for example, we do trust the main character is actually telling us the truth about what she's experiencing in this creepy situation. It's just very unsettling what's happening. But I personally really like to have an unreliable narrator for creepy stories, like in The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, which is a famous short story about a woman who goes mad. Just excellent unreliable narrator. The Turn of the Screw by Henry James is the same way. And then a very famous example is in Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart, where it begins, true, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous, I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? So he starts out protesting, like, why are you saying I'm insane? I'm telling you the truth. And so it's setting us up for the expectation that maybe we can't trust that what the narrator is telling us is actually what's happening. Maybe they're going insane. Maybe they are telling lies to themselves. Maybe they're telling lies to you, the audience. But that sense of uncertainty just increases if you have an unreliable narrator. That's one of the reasons that for my first Gothic horror story to have had so much blood, the main character is, we find out throughout the story, it seems like he's reliable at the beginning, but then you realize, wait, no, he is not a reliable narrator, and you have that sense of uncertainty. Is this really what's going on? So yeah, those are 4 ways that you can make your story creepier. So what did I leave out? I know there are lots of techniques to write this kind of story, this kind of tone. So add your own ideas down below. I would love to hear them. If you want any more resources for writing, you can check out my website, carly-stevens.com. I have several there and I'm always adding to them. So yeah, like, subscribe, get those notifications, and I will see you next week. Bye.